Hello again, everyone, on a very sad note today, but when you listen to this story, it's going to have a beautiful ending. And you may say, well, how can two people dying be a beautiful ending? Just listen, and you will know. And I want to talk about Mr. Herc and Miss Doris Daigneault. And of course, a lot of you by now know the Daigneault family. It's a widespread family. Tentacles go out into the community for quite some time. And sadly, Mr. Herc Daigneault recently passed away, and only a couple of days later, his beautiful bride of 75 years, Miss Doris Daigneault, she also passed away. And over the years, I have so many stories, especially of Mr. Herc. And I'm not trying to slight Miss Doris, but she was the one that sort of sat behind the scenes. But Mr. Herc, of course, was out front, along with his brother, Dean Daigneault. And you'll see an interview in a little while with both of those sitting down. We did a one-on-two with both of those. They were quite the character. But just going back in the days of Mom and Dad and Miss Doris and Mr. Herc at church, when I would take Mom and Dad to church at St. Francis, just listening to Mr. Herc and Dad talk, thinking they were talking quietly, but they were talking quite loud, and seeing both my mom and Miss Doris shushing them to tell them to keep it down because, of course, everybody could hear them. Very, very good personalities, and certainly that generation, unbelievable generation. And I just have so many fond memories, especially of Mr. Herc when I'd run into him at the banquets. Of course, he won the Eugene J. Folse Veterans Award one year. So did Mr. Dean, for that matter, two brothers. And you'll see in the interview who met when they were in war times, and how they met and how they came to the same place is an unbelievable story you'll see in this three-part series honoring Mr. Herc and Miss Doris Daigneault. So let me start off with the woman first. And of course, she deserves to be first. And we want to talk about Miss Doris May Arsamont Daigneault. She was born on June 8th, 1928, and she passed away on September 12th, 2025. She was a native of Gaines, Louisiana. She is survived by her children, David Daigneault and Christine, Danielle Moore, Walter Tootie Daigneault and Belle, Elizabeth Liz Cooper and Patrick, and Remy Daigneault and Penny. Her grandchildren, Benjamin Daigneault and Dorian, Allison Swayze and Robbie, Heather Daigneault, Paige Daigneault, Lauren Cooper, her fiancé, Max Wolf, Laura Zarang and Andrew, Lacey Foreman and John, Stephen Daigneault and Valerie, Catherine Moore, Jessica Humphreys and Brad, and Elizabeth Burnett, and 21 grandchildren. Wow. She was preceded in death by her husband, of course, which I spoke about earlier, Mr. Herc Daigneault, her parents Folse and Sarah Champagne Arsamont, grandchild Caroline Cooper, son-in-law Raymond Moore, and her brothers Murray Arsamont, Howard Arsamont, Morgan Pip Arsamont, and Andrew Arsamont. Her sisters Clara Pasqua, Bella Petrie, Della Blanchard, and Sarah Lejeune. Miss Dot was a loving, strong, faith-filled woman who adored her family. She was the glue that held it all together, which I spoke about earlier, and she was the glue. Her 75-year marriage to Herc was a true testament and commitment of till death do us part, since her passing was 48 hours upon his death. Some of the things she enjoyed most was spending time with family, cooking, playing cards, gardening, puzzles, and reading. Dot's grandchildren and great-grandchildren were the light of her eyes, looking forward to their visits. She was devoted to her daily prayers. Her stories and experiences helped build her family's foundation for life. Miss Dot will be greatly missed by all of her loving family and many friends. So now we'll talk about Mr. Herc. Mr. Herc Daigneault, born July 9th, 1924, passed away on September 10th, 2025, native of New Orleans, Louisiana. Of course, his wife, Doris Dot May Arsamont Daigneault, and we talked about the children and the grandchildren already. Of course, his parents, Walter P. and Rita Daigneault, grandchild who was preceded in death before him, Caroline Cooper, son-in-law Raymond Moore, and of course his brother, Major Dean Daigneault, and his sister, Patricia Sinak. Herc was a man of faith that was devoted to his family. He was married to Dot for 75 years, lovingly nurturing their family together. Miss Dot's passing occurred 48 hours upon his death. Their vows and commitment to each other was a true testament of till death do us part. As a good veteran, he served in World War II and was a member of the VFW, American Legion, and Knights of Columbus Council 1317 for 78 years. Mr. Herc was a founding member of the CYO, Catholic Youth Organization, Softball League, Houma Babe Ruth Organization, and Houma's First American Legion baseball team. He received the Eugene J. Folse Veterans Memorial Award in 2017. And trust me, my dad was thrilled to give it to him.
I had a feeling nobody coached me, nobody told me anything. And I said to Herc, you are going to be surprised. I had that feeling, and here it is, right at present.
What an honor that was for both gentlemen on that night. His compassion was shown to many during his 40-year banking career. All who knew him were fortunate to hear many of his life stories, and he loved to share those stories.
And it was an honor and a privilege to have been a banker, to have served some of you people here tonight, and if not you, members of your family. And it was wonderful that I had that opportunity to do so for 40 years. And anybody in business, keep up the good work, because this is a grand country and a grand United States. God bless you, everyone here.
Mr. Herc will be greatly missed by all of his loving family and many friends. Miss Dot was not one to get in front of the cameras, and Mr. Herc, for the most part, wasn't always seeking the limelight, but I did, and I was able to get him on the one-on-one program several times, and of course when he won the Eugene J. Folse Award, we had him on camera. But I asked him several questions during really what was one-on-two, him and his brother Dean Daigneault, who were so close. But I asked him, first of all, the first question would be, where are you from? Today, just for the record so the audience knows, both are wearing World War II veterans caps. Mr. Herc was born in 1924. Mr. Dean was born in 1927. So I'm sure we have a lot of history we could talk about today. Mr. Herc, we'll start with you. Where were you born, and what's the earliest years that you can remember?
I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, July the 9th, 1924. I can remember my earliest years when Dean was born on Hollywood Plantation, okay? And quite naturally, I used to play ball, and I got, for some reason, into the horse lot. I got under the fence, and the horse got out of the stable. And the horse came at me, and I fell down trying to get away. And the horse came in, he pawed on me, stepped on my back. Finally got the horse away, and they rushed me to Houma to see the old Dr. Collins. And he said, son, he told my parents, I remember that, he told my parents, he said, he's fortunate. He said, another inch, he'd have broke his back. I was about 5 or 6 years old when I remember that when that happened, okay?
How many were in your family?
3.
3? Yeah. Take me back to Houma in the early days. I love to hear the stories about what Houma used to be like in the early days. So paint a picture for us who weren't there and for the audience who might want to remember.
Well, I can go back, say, to the mid-30s, the early 30s. We lived at Presqu'île, okay? And Daddy was the second overseer at Presqu'île, okay? And Saturdays, we were lucky enough to come to town to go see a cowboy show, Dean and I, for 5 cents. Another 5 cents for a bar of candy, we'd break it in half. But that was not all the time, okay? My grandmother lived on Knockair Street here in Houma, 197 Knockair. And at that time, Martin, I remember there were wooden banquets, no wooden sidewalks. There were wooden banquets, okay? Out of town, say around Morgan Street on Main Street, okay? And the old buildings in Houma, some are still here, okay? And in Houma itself, I can remember seeing the old model cars, okay, the 30s, the Fords, etc., all right? But on the other hand, too, like we know, things change, and quite naturally, you forget, and like I forget, there was some other things that occurred that just not in existence today.
We continue to honor Miss Dot Daigneault and Mr. Herc Daigneault, who both passed away within 48 hours of each other. Quite a love story. And of course, don't feel like I'm sliding Miss Dot when I don't have a lot of video and interviews of her, when I do of Mr. Herc, because she wouldn't have wanted it any other way. That was what she felt was her role in life. She was never seeking the limelight, and Mr. Herc graced us with his presence to talk about many things. A lot of our conversations were, of course, about the war. When did you know you were getting called to go to World War II? Take me through that, and then I want to give both of y'all the floor in this. When did you know?
I graduated in May of 43, and I went in the service in the latter part of May of 43, okay? And I went for induction in New Orleans, okay? Took a physical, and standing in line for the physical, you walked up and there was a table, 3 medical officers sitting beyond the table, and we were all boys from Terrebonne High School class of 43, and my turn came up, and they looked at my physical that I'd gone through, and all of them looked at it and said, looked at it and put it down and said, rejected. And I turned around and I looked, and one of the boys, I think it was Earl Bergeron, he said, Rick, looks like you're not going to make it. I said, look that way. Well, the 3 got in the huddle again, okay, and talked. Canceled. Accepted. And this really happened. And what it was, I was colorblind and flat-footed. And on those 2 deals, that's why I was rejected, and later on they talked about it and I was accepted, okay? I went to Camp Beauregard. From Camp Beauregard, I went to Camp Callan, California for 16 weeks of basic training, okay? Mm-hmm. And quite naturally, from there I came 2 weeks home, and I went back to Camp Stoneman, California for further training, and we left by coincidence in January of 1944, and when January 2016 for the Pacific, there was 10,000 aboard the USS Monticello that consisted of sailors and Army personnel, and we went to different places to let off replacements. I was a replacement. I went to Milne Bay, and from Milne Bay, I went to my outfit, the 101st Army Anti-Aircraft Artillery, Automatic Weapons Battalion, where we 4 batteries, A, B, C, and D batteries, we placed around to protect airfields. I was in headquarters battery, fortunately, okay?
So you were in the Army?
I was in the Army, right. Correct. I spent 2 years overseas, to be exact. I left to go overseas in January of 44, and I came back in January of 45. 2 years in length, okay?
As the younger brother, when Mr. Herc was leaving, It had to be a tough moment for you to watch your brother go off to war.
And it was tough on Mama, you know, the parents.
Yeah.
And he always told me, he said, son, I know they're going to get you, but don't come in the Army because you don't get nothing to eat. Join the Navy, you get 3 meals a day.
True. My dad often said that the Navy had the
Best food. And guess what? No grease.
How did you stay tough through all that?
You know, when you're 18 years of age, 19, 20, until you reach the age of 27 or 28, this was brought out. This is fact. You don't think of, I don't know, for some reason, you don't think about that. As I go back, as I see now, I said, you could have, something could have happened to you, okay?
Yeah.
But you didn't think, I didn't think about it, okay? Now when you're in battle, it's altogether different, I understand. I wasn't in battle. I was not in battle. But if you got somebody firing at you, you know darn well you're going to think my life is in danger. I mean, I'd come out, okay? But it never dawned on me, to be honest with you.
So there's studies that said until you're around 27, you don't start thinking about it.
When you get 28, then you realize what life is all about. I missed that point, okay? That's the main point. When you get about 20, that's why they 18, 19 years old, happy, let's go, everything's going to be all right, until you get into the problem, okay? But I'll tell you, when you get 27 or 28 years old, then you start thinking, life is precious. Be careful what you do. Be careful, okay? I was in Nadzab, New Guinea. That's in Morecambe Valley, okay? And we left, I stayed there for about 15 months, and we left from there and went in when Manila was taken. We could hear the firing in the distance and gunshots and everything else. It was all of the buildings were demolished, and there were Japanese bodies floating in the bay and everything else, okay? But you could hear the firing and the artillery shells in the distance, okay? And there was nothing that was left standing, so to speak. Complete devastation all over, okay? And I said to myself, I wonder how many boys lost their lives, American boys, okay, to take this city, to clear it for us to come in. I wonder, okay? And I think of that today, how lucky I was. And all of the boys that came back, in battle or not, to come back and raise a family and live a good life and live a long life, and I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Right.
Never.
Were you constantly thinking about where was your brother?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Not a day went by where it wasn't on your mind.
That's right.
Y'all didn't know where each other were, and y'all met up during the war. Tell me that story.
There's the card.
Let the audience see that.
When I would write home, on the back of the flap of the envelope, I had an emblem, and this was the emblem on the back flap of that envelope. And for some reason or other, Dean got, in my writing, you couldn't say where you were, okay? But for some reason, they picked up I was somewhere in the Philippines, okay? And quite naturally, it turned out, it so happened he was shipped overseas. Dean was shipped overseas, okay? And I was in Manila at the time, okay? And he was shipped overseas. And through this medium, this is what happened.
No, I related. He lets me know this. What happened, we went in Samoa. That's where you all come in to be classified and sent out to different locations. Okay. And in doing so, I was on an Army ship, transport. Not much, but it wasn't that much. We had about 75 or 80 going up to Manila. And he says, and what I was happened to talk to I had a chance to go in and talk to the captain. And he says, listen, he says, I said, I think I have my brothers in Manila. Well, we're gonna stop that day. And he said, I tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a 72-hour pass, and I don't have to look for you. Well, I knew what he meant. In those days,
meant
So
business.
we tacked it then, and it was about 1 o'clock. And you could dress in dungarees. You didn't have to dress in whites or blues or anything like that. Then you didn't need that overseas. Walking down the street, just like New Orleans, and you got a photography shop. Next to the photography shop, they had a little Jeep parked out in the front. And on the bump in the back, they had the 101st AAA Gun Battalion. I said, oh, be damned, look at that. I went and sat down, and the lieutenant walks out. The boy, what you doing in my Jeep? So I jumped up and said, He said, put that hand in. You're not to salute me. I said, I'm looking for my brother. Who's that? I said, Herc Daigneault. He's a Dag. Nickname used to call him Dag. Yeah, you see, we call him Dag. He says, that's our supply soldier. He says, stay right here. Stay right here. I'll bring you right to him. When he brought him to me, he was shorter. I was taller, you know. I said, God, boy, you lost some height, boy. Must have been hiding.
You might have grown a little bit.
So, the officer come up there. He said, look, they got a case of beer in a Jeep. I'll go riding on the lake. It's just like if you were in New Orleans at the lakefront. Go ride out on the lakefront, drink your beer and have your fun, and come back, you sleep. Yeah, I got to report back tomorrow. I'll take you to the ship. Don't worry about it.
That was taken in Manila.
In Manila.
That picture right there.
Yeah, you see the groundwork, the cement, and the way they work material in there.
Taken in Manila, okay? And there was a boy in my outfit. He was a photographer.
That was taken in New Orleans.
This over here was taken in New Orleans when we were kids.
You must have had the hat, Mr. Dean, because you were young at the time, but later you might have
Curls.
shot.
Mama didn't want to cut my hair. It's curls so pretty.
Yeah, curly. Yeah, you curly hair, right? Correct.
Oh yeah. Okay, we dropped that. But anyway, we came back, and then that's when they brought me up to Subic Bay, and Herc and I started corresponding. And I said, why don't you come see me? Or one day, we're in a church on Sunday. But what was good about these boys, no matter what denomination they belonged to, they came to the Catholic Church. We had a Catholic priest who was a lieutenant. And there's no roof, it was blowing out, just a wall, no windows. Had some old seats in there to sit on. And I was thinking of him. And I get him to walk out, he's standing up in the back.
How long had it been since you had seen him?
A year and a half, 2 years.
We continue to honor Mr. Herc and Miss Doris Daigneault, who passed away within 48 hours of each other this week. And once again, if you're just joining us, I don't know if there's a better way for a couple who was married for 75 years to go other than together. Think about it. I mean, it's just such a love story. You can't write it. You can't script it any better. They were so devoted to each other and their family, and they had a great life. And I know it's hard for the family. My God, how can you grieve for your matriarch and your patriarch, all in one time period, but just on the other side, just what a beautiful moment it will be to see this unfold and to know that both of them are on another journey together. So, amen on that. All right, once again, sitting down with Mr. Herc and Major Dean Daigneault. What a story. To get through that depression, didn't that make you mentally tough at a young age?
Well, you had to do a little bit extra.
What would y'all do if y'all did not have cell phones today?
Well,
You'd move about business, wouldn't you?
well, I tell you what, I think they're gonna laugh at me because I don't own one.
All right, that's my point.
I'm being honest.
And
I don't know why.
Likewise myself. No. I guess I'm from the old school, okay? Because the old school has taught me a lot of things. How to get by today, and as life moves forward, I've been educated to realize how wonderful it was. Tough in those days, but toughness makes you think more and thankful what you got, because you take care of things today and you don't abuse it.
It makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Makes you stronger.
Y'all actually had to sit at the dinner table and have a conversation, didn't y'all? That was pretty neat, wasn't it?
Well, every Sunday, God is my judge, the family would meet and they had dinner and they ate. And you have a problem? You have a problem? You have a problem? You go around, you have a problem? What's your problem? The daddy run the show. Mama ran the show.
The grown-ups ate first.
That's what
The
it is.
children ate second.
They ate second.
That's right.
Second round.
That's right.
And going back to 2017, what an honor it was for HTV to present my dad's award, the Eugene J. Folse Veterans Award, to Mr. Herc Daigneault. And of course, my dad passing away in 2018, and this was the last award that my daddy would give while he was still alive on earth. But what a great man he presented it to. My dad loved Mr. Herc so much. They were friends. They joked around together. My dad thought a lot about Mr. Herc. And let's listen in as Mr. Herc was awarded the 2017 Eugene J. Folse Veterans Award. Now, Mr. Herc Daigneault, who just won the Eugene Folse Veterans Award. Mr. Herc, first of all, congratulations. My dad's going to come up and join you. Congratulations on your big win.
Thank you very much. This was a surprise, and I'll tell you one thing. It's something that if everybody experienced something like this, they'd never forget it. I'll tell you that. And I'll thank you, Martin, for everything. And your dad over here, we're very good friends, okay? Likewise with you. But this one night I'll never forget. At the age of 92 and a half, I'll be 93 come July the 9th this year.
Mr. Herc, what did you do throughout your life for the audience, and take us through it?
To work at the Bank of Terrebonne and Trust Company, January 22nd, 1947, after coming out of the service. I went to work there for $90 a month on the GI Bill, job of training for 1 year, $40 from Uncle Sam, okay? In order to get this job, I had an honorable discharge from the United States Army. Let me give you this point. In the war years, it was known as the Army of the United States. Today, in peacetime, it's the United States Army. I asked somebody gave somebody this information about 3 or 4 years who was in the service. He didn't know that. But anyhow, going back to the bank, okay? I applied for the job. Mr. Farquhar Guidry was president of the Bank of Terrebonne and Trust Company. It's the building across from People's Drugstore on Main Street, on the corner there. That's built right now. I had to have three letters of recommendation. I'm 24 years old, 23 or 24 years old. From a doctor, from a businessman, and from an attorney to get the job. Now here I got an honorable discharge. But that shows you in the time, okay? And I put in 40 years in the bank, okay? And the banking taught me a lot of things, so I've come in contact with the public, okay? I've worked with the public. I've had some good times, tough times, but I managed to come out of it, okay? I worked myself up from assistant cashier, assistant vice president, and I finished banking with vice president, okay? And I always kid about this. I said, a title is nice, but the money is better. But banking taught me a lot, and especially today, as I'm retired, 28 years I've been retired from the bank.
Who was your boss at the bank?
There was Mr. Farquhar Guidry, Mr. Hayes Whitney. Then eventually, that Mr. Hayes died. We moved to where the bank, City Houma is right now, McCormick Bass and Main Street. And at that time, Ed Guidry took over as president of the bank. And then L.J. Folse came in, and the bank changed three or four names. It was the Bank of Terrebonne, Terrebonne Bank and Trust Company, Premier Bank, and Bank One.
What was your personalities like? I'm gonna let y'all each describe the other one.
We should have been united, attached to one another, because we were very close, and still are. And wherever he went, I went. Wherever, and vice versa, okay? And to give you an example, we bought a car together, he and I. And I was getting ready to get married in January 1950. And I told Dean, I said, Dean, I'll tell you what you do. If you buy that car, I'll give you my share in the car to buy a car. But I want to make a deal with you. He said, what's that, bro? I said, if you let me that car to go on my honeymoon, you have my share of that car. And it was a deal, and it happened that way too. Wow. So whatever he had belonged to me, and whatever I had, it belonged to him. Right. And there was no fussing, there was no fight, nothing like that at all. Okay? We've always been close.
One and the same, huh?
That's right. That's right. And we never squabbled. You know what I mean? How you said brothers are fight? Never did. Not that I can remember, unless he did it when I was sleeping. Okay.
I dug in his pocket, see if he had any money. The straight eight Hudson. Boy, that was an automobile. That was the best.
And that was the car?
That was the car.
Right.
It was a red, ruby red.
Right.
If you don't mind me asking, how much did y'all pay for it?
I don't know. What was it? $2,600?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. $1,800.
Right. Somewhere around there. Right.
And what year was that?
1950.
Yeah.
50.
You got married, yeah, right?
Yeah, I was in the oil field. I don't know what the hell was I.
Yeah.
Did you pay cash or did you have to monthly loan?
Notes from the bank.
Yeah.
See, the bank financed it in those days.
We're practical jokers.
Yeah, look, we had some fun in those days. And then at 3 o'clock, he'd still come pick me up and we'd go out and have a few little toddies, you know?
Yeah. Well, y'all were practical jokers, much like we set you up one day at the local pub.
Oh, yeah, you did a good job on that one. But I found out it wasn't as good. But you see, I can take it, you know.
Oh, no, you're good. You're a good sport. You always were.
Well, you got to be.
Isn't that what it's all about? You got to find some time to laugh.
Yeah, time to laugh and time to be serious, right?
Yeah.
The old saying, when you smile, everybody smiles at you. But when you cry alone.
When did you know you were getting called to go to World War II? Take me through that, and then I want to give both of y'all the floor on this. When did you know?
I graduated in May of 43, and I went into service in the latter part of May of 43, okay? And I went for induction in New Orleans, okay? Took a physical, and standing in line for the physical, you walked up and there was a table, 3 medical officers sitting beyond the table, and we were all boys from Terrebonne High School, class of 43. And my turn came up, and they looked at my physical that I'd gone through, and all of them looked at it and they put it down and said, rejected. And I turned around and I looked, and one of the boys, I think it was Earl Bergeron, he said, Herc, looks like you're not going to make it. I said, look that way. Well, the 3 got in the huddle again, okay, and talked, canceled, accepted. And this really happened. And what it was, I was colorblind and flat-footed. And on those 2 deals, that's why I was rejected, and later on they talked about it and I was accepted. Okay? I went to Camp Beauregard. From Camp Beauregard, I went to Camp Callan, California for 16 weeks of basic training. Okay? And quite naturally, from there I came 2 weeks home. And I went back to Camp Stoneman, California for further training, and we left by coincidence in January of 1944, and in January 2016 for the Pacific. There was 10,000 aboard the USS Monticello that consisted of sailors and Army personnel. And we went to different places to let off replacements. I was a replacement. I went to Milne Bay, and from Milne Bay, I went to my outfit, the 101st Army Anti-Aircraft Artillery, Automatic Weapons Battalion. What we did, we 4 batteries, A, B, C, and D batteries, we placed around to protect airfields. I was in headquarters battery, fortunately, okay?
So you in the Army?
I was in the Army, right. Correct. I spent 2 years overseas, to be exact. I left to go overseas in January of 44, and I came back in January of 45. 2 years in length, okay?
As the younger brother, when Mr. Herc was leaving, it had to be a tough moment for you to watch your brother go off to war.
And it was tough on Mama, you know, parents.
Yeah.
And he always told me, he said, son, I know they're gonna get you, but don't come in the Army because you don't get nothing to eat. Join the Navy, you get 3 meals a day.
My dad often said that the Navy had the
Best food. And guess what? No grease.
How did you stay tough through all that?
You know, when you're 18 years of age, 19, 20, until you reach the age of 27 or 28, this was brought out. This is fact. You don't think of, I don't know, for some reason, you don't think about that. As I go back, as I see now, I said, something could have happened to you, okay?
Yeah.
But you didn't think, I didn't think about it, okay? Now when you're in battle, it's altogether different, I understand. I wasn't in battle. I was not in battle. But if you got somebody firing at you, you know darn well you're gonna think my life is in danger. I mean, I'd come out, okay? But it never dawned on me, to be honest with you.
So there's studies that said until you're around 27, you don't start thinking about it.
When you get 28, then you realize what life is all about. I missed that point, okay? That's the main point. When you get about 20, that's why they 18, 19 years old, happy, let's go, everything's gonna be all right, until you get into the problem, okay? But I'll tell you, when you get 27 or 28 years old, then you start thinking, life is precious. Be careful what you do, be careful.
As we close, there are no words to describe. I've done many eulogies here on HTV where I've remembered many great people in our community. And once again, I don't think I've ever presented a eulogy on HTV or an attempt at a eulogy or a remembrance where within 48 hours, both passed after 75 years of loving each other right here on earth. But once again, let's remember the joy of this story. Let's remember what they are experiencing now in heaven. And let's remember that neither one has to wait on the other one to continue their journey of love and their presence before God. What a great moment. And I know there's sadness. We're going to miss them because on earth, we miss people when they're gone. But they are traveling together, and I'm sure they got a quick ticket in, and the joy that they are experiencing now can only be described as unbelievable. Well, Mr. Herc, Miss Dot, may you rest in peace, and our condolences go out to the entire family, the entire Daigneault family, extended family, and everyone who was touched by their presence here on earth. God bless them.